轉印說瓊花一夜滿空山，天曉佳言好說學，偏偏終要支粒珠，愛緣又在半途間。
Because of the snow. In a single night, snow covers the bare mountain. Dawn comes and everyone says, a good fall of snow. Although we see that all the flakes all reach the ground, and we see that ourselves are only halfway. I think I put an extra all in there, so. Draft 2. We're just redoing the last two lines. Although we know the flakes all. Should I speak?
The title is different.
Oh, it's yes. The title is now On a Snowfall. Although we know the flakes all reach the ground, as yet we are only halfway. And in the final version, we've said, prompted by a snowfall. In a single night, snow covers the bare mountain. Dawn comes and everyone says, a good fall of snow. Although every flake knows in the end it will reach the ground, alas, some are still only halfway.
I can see there's some tone that you add to the last line, and alas, that it makes it brings in some emotion from the last line.
That would be a good answer.
And it's a feel pity as well.
I'm not sure which one of us came up with the last. Yes, our friend that we consulted with about Buddhism, because she was an expert in it, and she suggested this, which is where the last came in. Some are still in halfway. I think it makes it better.
Yeah, it's a difference in perspective. And we try to keep as close to the original as possible, to leave it open to interpretation.
I think in this kind of poem, it's always open to interpretation by other people, because the way the whole way the poem is structured and the attitude and feeling that it's coming from almost makes it impossible for you to completely capture that, or even to know for certain exactly what they're intending. And do the best we can.
Is there, do you have questions to ask them? Because they're both really expert on translation. Is there something you want to know?
I'm just curious. I'm just very interested. I'm just very curious. You see, most of the time when I read poems in another language, I can only see the final thought. It's most unusual that we can have a chance to see the draft and how it evolved. So in your book, will you include a section of how this translation process is done, and even including the draft process, so we can appreciate the evolution in translation?
Well, I have to say, this gives you a misleading opinion, because often there were 15 translations in between the first one and the last one. you know, and this would go back and forth through the internet. What do you think about this? Well, try this. Let's see what that does, and so on, back and forth, back and forth. I don't think I was going to have an answer to your question.
Well, you can almost write a book on this process. This is most interesting. This has never been done. It's most unusual for somebody to translate in a language that you don't know. Usually, we expect somebody to be very proficient in both languages to work on translations.
Well, I'm not proficient in Spanish, French, or Italian, but I've translated all of those too, and people like it, so I don't know, I think it's just a knack of some kind. I can't really explain it. But I am a poet myself, and I've published 8 books of poetry myself. So I think being a poet has a lot to do with it. Because I can identify with the original writer to some extent. And I try to put myself in his place and write it as if I were him, as much as I can.
Yes, I'm really impressed by the way they reacted to the poems. Although he doesn't read Chinese, but I think he has the feel of the language. He somehow can understand and get into the mood of the poem and get it right.
I just add a line there.
Just a very brief line, because I'm not a poet. I'm a researcher, a student of Professor Mrs. Fong, and I'm working on research about the negotiations or the kind of translation process that's going on between them. So I've collected their correspondence and then look at the draft, and you can see that they've spent a lot of time not just talking about the meaning. Sometimes they will discuss the choice of words, a range of words. Sometimes they can go so to the details about the punctuations, whether we should put a comma there or we should use a dash. And then they would do all kind of research about the use of terms, how would this sound, whether this will kept the original Buddhist kind of thinking or the Zen, the Chinese kind of ideas and that sort of thing. So it's much more complicated than we could have imagined in anyway. So I hope that by working on this kind of studies on the collaborative research, we can at least have a glimpse of the kind of hardship or the kind of work that they have done in the process. I think it's more than 2 years, right, that you worked on the translation. So yeah, it's just like two, yeah.
Just wanted to go on a note that you were saying, David. So you don't think it's completely necessary to be fluent in such as Italian, Chinese, Spanish, whatever. But as long as you get the essence and most importantly the meaning of the poem, for not only the individual words that Mary you helped him with. And this process, if we were just working as one person, probably wouldn't bring the desired results, the end results of the translated poem. But working with Mary, you're able to come to that, and perhaps working with the poet itself. So what kind of words of encouragement would you say to, I guess, amateur translators or poets like us that want to improve our skills in translating poems that we appreciate, so that we can share with them?
And even if you're not, might be completely fluent in that language.
If possibly, you should learn the language. That's the best thing to do. But otherwise, I would suggest you do what I've done and find somebody who is an expert and work with them. I don't know what else to tell you about it, really.
Well, say about Buddhism, David actually wanted to learn Chinese. He almost came in 2003. He registered for a Chinese course within Chinese university. But you know what happened in 2003?
SARS.
And then he didn't come. So it's 缘分缘因缘的问题，缘 wasn't right. So you will have to just do whatever we can in this case.
Yeah, not really questions, but
somehow I'm thinking of like the question previously asked, because for translation I thought it is very important for us to be very proficient in that language, because for me I am studying English in the university, but I think my English standard was never native. But what I do is just like what this lady has mentioned, trying to think of the choice. So I think it is very important to think of more choice out of our lexicon, and I think it's kind of perseverance too. So I am very surprised that Mr. Lundy is not proficient in Chinese, but he can still keep up on that.
any more questions? Actually, I have one question. You mentioned that when you are in college and then you do some translation on a poet and then the work is not being published, and it should be a discouraging process, right? My question is not on the discouraging process, but do you agree that doing translation is a good way to read a poem, to read the work of a poet? Is it the best? To me, it's really a way that you study the poet from a detailed way, analyze the work and things like that. And do you think it's really a good process, to understand a poet by translating his work?
I agree, yes. I think that it's certainly going to learn more about the poet by trying to translate his workings of it. You have to really think about it very hard and do your best to understand everything about the poem in order to try and translate it into some other language. Completely. It's not the easiest thing to do.